I want to transition us to price and what you're thinking about this cycle where your mental models go with this, sailors, gold rush over the next 10 years and where we are long term. Where are you and the kind of work from the end and work backwards? So where do you sit in the spectrum of, are you more along the lines of Jack Mahler's, where Bitcoin's one half of every transaction and the TAM, the total addressable market, is 450 trillion? Is it more of a Jeff Booth approach where it's 900 trillion? It's going to account for every single asset in the system. Is it above that? Is it below all that? Where do you kind of sit in this spectrum when you look out on the horizon?
Firstly, I love Jeff. So what I'm about to say, Jeff, I'm sorry. I think, I think all of us are being ultra conservative on where this goes. Michael Saylor talks about Bitcoin being 50% of every transaction. So by default, that would either put it somewhere between 450 trillion or 900 trillion, depending on how you want to structure that. But I'd actually go further and think that market is actually going to be significantly bigger than 900 trillion. Because what you really need to look at is not only will it make up 50% of every transaction, whoever is the largest holder of Bitcoin, you need to divide whatever the 50% of every transaction is by whoever is holding the largest percentage of Bitcoin. So if that's Michael Saylor at 5%, if it's 900 trillion, you need to divide 900 trillion by 5%, which would give you roughly $18 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. Now, why do you divide by whoever's holding the most amount of Bitcoin? Is because that means they could effectively use all of their Bitcoin to buy everything in the world. And that will obviously never happen. So by my, conservative figures, I think $18 trillion, assuming someone owns 5% of the total supply, Satoshi, I think that's a relatively conservative estimate. I think it'll be a lot higher because obviously people will value a future value of money into the Bitcoin that they hold, and they'd never get rid of all of their Bitcoin for a transaction. So I think that the low end of the spectrum starts at $18 trillion, whatever number that comes out to. I'm not sure, but I'm sure we could do that. But yeah, I think that would be, probably close to at least $1 billion a coin. And I think that's a fair estimate. Fair market value for me would be that. And this is the interesting thing that we've got at the moment is we've got a coin valued at $100,000 and you get to buy it at a 99.99% discount to what fair market value should be on Bitcoin. Yeah. If Warren Buffett understood Bitcoin, he would have sold all his Apple shares, all of his Berkshire shares, absolutely everything to go hand over fist into Bitcoin. He'd be the biggest Bitcoin treasury company if he understood it. He'd give Michael Saylor a run for his money. But it's a very difficult thing to understand because we're programmed not to understand it. But I think, $1 billion Bitcoin would be easily achievable. I think we'll see that in the next 15 to 20 years.
Is that in, so what is that? I'm going to try to do math. Is that like 1,000x from here or 10,000x, or is that, and is that in today's dollars as well? Like how do you look at all that?
Yeah, that'd be 1,000x from here in today's dollars. And I think that's absolutely achievable in a 20-year period. Like 10 years ago, we were telling people to buy Bitcoin and they've achieved a 150x return on their money in 10 years. Over the next 10 years, it's not unfeasible to think that they can get a 100x return. And then another 10 years after that's another 10x return on that. So I think those numbers are absolutely achievable.
Do you, and we touched on this earlier a little bit, what, when do you see Bitcoin really achieving like escape velocity or escaping a fiat? Because I mean, like when does, somewhere in there, I feel like it goes no bid in the sense of like people won't take dollars for the Bitcoin anymore, like it's, it's like, I mean, I agree with you because Bitcoin, there's no, fiat goes to zero. All fiat has gone to zero in the course of all human history. It's all gone to zero. So the inverse of that obviously is infinity for Bitcoin. Like at what point though, could like, do you really foreseeably see Bitcoin going to $1 billion and we still have fiat and people are like chumming along like, okay, yeah, this is great and all, and Bitcoin's at $1 billion? Or is it somewhere in there where maybe Bitcoin has $1 billion in purchasing power per Bitcoin, but it's just a Bitcoin standard at that point? So does that make sense? Like, do you think they're still riding parallel to each other in the sense of, hey, we still have fiat and we still have Bitcoin, but this is just the purchasing power of Bitcoin has increased so much? Or at some point in there, has fiat gone away and has it collapsed?
I actually think we see fiat for a lot longer than we would like to see.
Okay.
I think it'll be there for the next 50 years, 20, 30, 50 years. But what's a really interesting thought experiment is if you denominated all that value in today's dollars on what was mined today, you've got 450 Bitcoin being mined today, and you've got $7 trillion of global value that gets facilitated by that. So if you, what is it, 6.3. So if you divided 6.3 or $7 trillion by 450 coins, you're going to get a number that's bigger than $14 billion. So that's today's numbers. So I look at this and think, if you've got, and back to the points we were talking about, if you've got the liquidity sinks in all of these Bitcoin treasury companies that can't sell their Bitcoin because it undermines their reason for being, if they do.
If you're liking this interview, but you're just wondering, you know what, Brandon, this is amazing stuff. And I get you have these guests on and they're talking about how orange pilling the world is so great and how Bitcoin is going to take over the world. How in the world do I educate my family and friends? How do I get people to understand what most people just don't care about, quite honestly? Bitcoin trading cards is the way to do that. When you open up these cards, you see the foil cards, you see the chase, you see the glossy cards, young, old, boy, girl, man, woman, it doesn't matter. People love these cards. It's awesome because they're super valuable, by the way. Amazing little side note. However, it Trojan horses them into the most important thing of the day. It's not politics. It's not all the things that we fight about. It's changing the money, fix the world. Bitcoin trading cards is the best way that we have going in order to do that, no matter who you are. You're going to love them. Playable Characters 10 for 10% off at checkout. Playable Characters 10 off at checkout. BTC-TC.com. You're going to absolutely love these things. Now back to the show.
Then those Bitcoins are lost forever. They may as well be lost because they can't be spent. If you've got all of these long-term hodlers using leverage, which doesn't sell the Bitcoin, all of a sudden we don't have any Bitcoin available. We will get to a point in time where that happens. And then what we have is, if we don't have fiat, we have, saying today, if fiat didn't exist, we have 450 coins produced today that need to facilitate the entire global transaction of $7 trillion. So very simply, you divide 7 trillion by 450 and you'll get to a number that's circa $14 billion a coin. That's what it looks like. They're just the numbers. Like, if you follow that to a logical conclusion, Bitcoin goes to infinity. And ironically, if you're focused on price going up, then you should be rooting for the extension and the survival of fiat, because nothing makes Bitcoin go up faster than the existence of our fiat system.
Yeah, that's so true. That's the trade everywhere right now, right? The Hugo Stennis trade, the Japan, yen carry trade, where you're arbitraging and borrowing against this depreciating currency and saving and buying that appreciating money, really. So yeah, that's, wow. It's just a wild time we are really about to enter. Where does people will come and they'll ask about, well, there's gonna be lost coins. You can't run a whole network. You can't run the whole world on Bitcoin. How do you see this? Because again, like we just said, like there's lost coins. There's people going to be losing their coins. People passing away and not passing them down. All this. So how do you view, or if you have clients or family, friends, or you're speaking at a conference and this comes up, how do you explain the importance of deflation and how that's going to benefit society going forward?
I think humans are very good at adapting, and we've adapted to an inflationary system, and we will adapt to a deflationary system. I think, look at one of the books behind you over your shoulder, written by Jeff, Price of Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. He does the best job in the world of explaining deflation and what's coming to the world. The fact that, probably a large portion of humans will have to be on some form of universal basic income, I think is coming for the world. And if you don't have Bitcoin, then, you'll basically be dictated to. But this is where Bitcoin is the most important thing, I think, behind food, water, oxygen. It should be. But the funny thing is there's 8 billion people who need this, but maybe 1 million people on Earth understand what the consequences are of not having it and actually believe that 8 billion people need it. And this is the fork in the road, that if you want to be a self-sovereign individual, if you want to have full control of your domain, if you want to insulate yourself from universal basic income, from robots, from AI, there's no better investment to make than Bitcoin and to self-custody that, because you have full control over all of your faculties, all of your outcomes.
There's only around 1.13 million Bitcoin left to mine over the until 2140. So it's just, what is it? Just over 5% of the supply left. I would love for you to touch on, in saying all this, because this is what makes me think of it. The deflationary aspect, capturing deflation, a neutral money that captures deflation back to all of the people on that network. How important is it for people to, how should the average person be looking at their stacking goals? Again, most people are just like, hey, I got a few bucks here. Yeah, I'm looking to save long term. I'd love to increase my purchasing power. And we're at this digital gold rush, as Saylor calls it, this next 10 years of where in 10 years from now, 99% of the supply is gone. So we're at this inflection point. So I would love for you to extrapolate and just unpack like how important it is for someone to be stacking Bitcoin, stacking sats, and accruing and saving in this hard money.
Well, I think you raised a number of points, but the most important thing, and this is where sort of, from a really top-down approach, the fear of deflation should be offset by the fact that you now have money that is deflationary as well. So if you can spend less than you earn, you can always provide for your retirement or your outcomes that you need. And this is the really interesting thing. So if you had the choice between an inflationary system whereby not only did you have to work, you then had to invest that money and outperform the inflation rate and the currency debasement, would anyone really choose that versus a system that enables you to work once, and then if you save that and don't spend it, that money is going to appreciate in value? If we were just dropped on a planet tomorrow, no one on Earth is going to want to take, let's use the inflationary system that means we have to be on a hamster wheel for the rest of our life. No one on Earth is going to do that. It's always the deflationary money. And the greatest trick the devil ever told us was saying that inflation is a good thing. And we're trying to target a 2% inflation rate. To me, that's, you're robbing us slowly.
If you like that clip, then you definitely got to check out this next spicy clip. I think you're really going to like it. Come on, check it out. But if you want the full version, the full interview, then check that out over here. Come on, do it. I'll see you in there.